Peace and blessings. Y'all come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. We're getting started with day 2 of the Healing Fast Challenge. And we're going to get things kicked off today, y'all. Come on in, let's get settled. As we start off, as usual, I always mention, make sure you have your ebook somewhere listed, either on another device or somewhere where you can pull up and follow along. That way, as we move throughout the challenge, we can continue to connect the dots and understand more about fasting and how to apply it for healing, specifically when it comes down to dealing with blood pressure issues. So come on in, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So to begin with, I want to bring up the announcements. I always like to do the announcements before we even get going. If you purchase the book, the High Blood Pressure Breakdown or the High Blood Pressure Breakdown Cookbook, everything has been shipped out. Only orders that haven't been shipped out, of course, are the orders that came in today. So everything else has been moving. Check your email, check your spam mail. If you're having any issues, feel free to click on the tech support link. That way you can get some further details exactly about your shipment to understand exactly where it's at. But all orders that wasn't placed today were already shipped out, and you should be having them land on your doorstep pretty much sometime this week. With that being said, that's all the announcements. Time to get into the good stuff. Time to get into the good stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my ebook right here, and we're gonna go. I'm gonna do a quick. I'm gonna do a quick overview of what we talked about briefly yesterday. I'm gonna do a quick overview briefly of what we talked about yesterday. That way we could tie everything in together and continue to move forward with understanding these fasting strategies. So yesterday we talked about fasting, and we went through the the breakdown of what fasting is. We looked at it from a medical standpoint, along with looking at it from a religious standpoint, and just understanding that fasting is fasting is the body's natural way of healing when it comes down to dealing with any internal issues. We talked about the different pathways, but more specifically, we talked about the different processes that happens throughout fasting. The first one was autophagy. We broke down autophagy so we can understand what's taking place, how the body is reacting, and how long it actually takes to get to this process for your body to start seeing this form of healing. The next one we talked about was autolysis. We got into this process and we connected the dots between autolysis and autophagy so we can understand the double impact that's going on and how the body is responding when you don't give it any food through this particular, through the fasting process. We broke down the difference between fasting and starvation. That way we understand what we're doing as we're progressing through these different strategies. And lastly, we talked about ketosis, understanding how this process works, how the body is switching from burning glucose as fuel and breaking down fat, and how this process is affecting the body as you're transitioning through the fast itself. So we went through that whole process, broke those things down, and the goal of yesterday was, the goal of understanding these things is to help you understand what's happening in your body while you're fasting. That way you're not just saying, oh, I'm fasting just to fast, or I'm just doing this for a particular challenge or something. You understand what's actually taking place, and that's going to allow you to actually be more confident in what you're doing, because you're understanding the process and you know exactly what you're trying to achieve while you're doing it. So that's why it's really, really important to understand the why behind the different strategies that you're taking. That way you become more stronger through the process, you understand the journey more, and you're able to just be in more control of what's actually taking place. So today, we're going to be talking about different fasting strategies, and we're going to be diving deeper into them and breaking them down. If you guys have any questions, the chat is open. Feel free to drop them in, and that way we could continue to just connect the dots and just understand as we move forward. And if you're not already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That way you can get those updates as I go live, and you can stay tied into the different tactics and strategies when it comes down to correcting blood pressure issues. Now, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And again, if you guys got any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. All right, fasting strategies. Number one, we're going to go with the intermittent fasting. It's a pattern of eating. Definition and the functions. Intermittent fasting is a dietary approach that alternates between periods of eating and fasting. Unlike continuous fasting, like what we talked about yesterday, intermittent fasting involves regular eating intervals, making it a more sustainable practice for many people. How does it work? There are various methods of intermittent fasting, such as a 16-8 method, which is 16 hours of fasting followed by an 8-hour eating window, or the 5-2 method, eating normally for 5 days and reducing calorie intake on 2 non-consecutive days. The goal is to allow the body to enter a fasting state periodically, triggering specific metabolic responses. So when it comes down to intermittent fasting, again, this is a pattern of eating. And the most popular one is the 16-8 fasting strategy, where you're fasting for 16 hours and you're eating for 8 hours. And when you're applying this type of fasting strategy, this allows for you to allow the body to do what it needs to do when it comes down to the cleansing and the resetting aspect. This allows for your body to use up a lot of that nutritional storage that's there and break things down internally. That way, that excess weight that you may be holding on, those other dysfunctions or those cells that are not functioning at a proper level, they're getting the service and attention that they need instead of constantly working and breaking down the building blocks of food that you may be giving it. So understanding that intermittent fasting is one fasting strategy. The 16-8 is the most popular, and the 5-2 is basically it's another strategy that's available. For 5 days out of the week, you're eating normally without much of a schedule. But for 2 of those days, this is where you're going to apply a fasting strategy. And this is where it can allow you to build up that momentum and continue to level up to a longer fast. So we're going to get into it a little bit more, but I'm going to keep reading to keep us moving along. Connecting intermittent fasting to high blood pressure, beginning with weight loss and weight management. Intermittent fasting often leads to a reduction in calorie intake and promotes fat loss, helping in weight management. Since excess weight is a significant risk factor for high blood pressure, intermittent fasting can contribute to lowering blood pressure through weight control. Now, when it comes down to blood pressure, one thing that we should understand is, when you're dealing with the weight issue, let's say you're dealing with obesity, this is sometimes contributing to your blood pressure problem. Not all the time, but sometimes. For most people, but not all people, because there's some people that are overweight that don't have blood pressure issues. And there's some people that are skinny that do have blood pressure issues. So it's different variables that happen, and a lot of that goes back down to genetics. But for the majority of people that are dealing with weight issues, they can have a high blood pressure problem. And the reason they're having a blood pressure issue is because that excess weight that they're holding throughout their body, it causes their blood vessels to lengthen. And the blood vessels get lengthened, the blood vessels lengthen, and what happens then is that the arteries or the vessels become a lot more narrow. And when they're narrow, the heart has to pump harder to get this excessive amount of blood through the cardiovascular system, because when you have when you're holding excess weight, your body has to create more blood vessels in order to supply the excess fat and the excess muscles with nutrients through the blood. So more blood vessels equals more blood equals more blood volume. More blood volume means the heart has to work harder to get all the blood through this massive cardiovascular system. And with those blood vessels being heavy and weighed down, they stretch, and the arteries, the vessels get a lot more narrow, and this makes it harder for the blood to flow through. And this is why simply losing 10 pounds can be a big adjustment for a lot of people with their blood pressure, because you're taking the burden off of the cardiovascular system. You're losing that 10 pounds, that excess fat that you lost, it gets broken down, and now the body doesn't have to work so hard in order to nourish that fat, because that fat that you're holding on to is living tissue, it's living, it's alive. And it creates waste, and it needs nourishment, and the body has to pump and feed it. But when you get rid of it and lose that fat, Now it gets broken down and eliminated out of the system, and it's less work for the heart to do. And in turn, your blood pressure is going to respond in a positive manner. So understand that if you're dealing with a weight issue, intermittent fasting is going to allow for you to it's going to help you lose weight, and also pretty much get things in order for you moving forward. So this is a big thing, and this is a strategy that's going to allow you to correct those the obesity issue that you may be dealing with. So, striving to lose 5 or 10 pounds and building up from there, it should be part of your goal when it comes down to correcting your blood pressure issues. Now back to it. Number 2, improving insulin sensitivity. Intermittent fasting has been shown to enhance insulin sensitivity, allowing the body to use glucose more effectively. Better insulin function can lead to improved blood sugar control, positively impacting blood pressure. Now, one thing about it is, if you're dealing with blood sugar issues, this is directly connected to high blood pressure. High blood pressure and diabetes, they run the same pathway. Many people that have high blood pressure starting out, if they don't get it under control, at some point down the line, it's possible for them to develop diabetes. People with diabetes, if they don't get it under control, sooner or later, they're going to be steered right into a blood pressure problem, because diabetes is one of the leading causes of heart disease. And when it goes uncontrolled, it becomes a real big problem for the cardiovascular system. So understanding that fasting, it hits it hits the blood sugar levels as well, and it allows for you to correct these issues that are going on there. So again, fasting affects the body as a whole. It's not just singling out one particular problem. It's an overall healing for the whole body. And the better you understand the strategies that you're using, it's going to allow you to get the results that you need. I don't know why my tablet keep locking up and closing on me. Number 3, reduction in inflammation. Some studies suggest that intermittent fasting may reduce inflammation, a contributing factor to high blood pressure. By modulating inflammatory pathways, intermittent fasting may support healthier blood vessel functions. Now, understanding that inflammation is one of the biggest things that's happening in individuals that are dealing with blood pressure problems. There's a consistent low-grade inflammation that's going on inside of anyone that's dealing with high blood pressure. This low-grade inflammation is happening inside of the blood vessels, and it's a part of what's fueling the problem. And going into a fasting state allows for these cells to start correcting these internal issues. So understanding that there's a number of dominoes that are lined up that's causing this blood pressure issue, and fasting knocks them down and cleans the board one by one, and it allows you to get your body in alignment. So a fasting strategy, again, is one of the best things that you could do for your overall health. Number 4, the impact of cholesterol levels. Intermittent fasting may influence cholesterol levels, particularly reducing the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and increasing the HDL, the good cholesterol. A healthy cholesterol profile supports cardiovascular health, including blood pressure regulation. I believe yesterday we briefly talked about cholesterol, but understanding that the HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, its job is to pick up the bad cholesterol, the LDL, and transport it back to the liver to be broken down and utilized in other ways. So understanding that if you're having a cholesterol issue, most likely this is due to you having a low HDL, which is the good cholesterol, a higher LDL, and a higher triglyceride problem. So fasting allows for the production of more of the HDL, the good cholesterol, to help sweep up and clean out the cells and clean out the blood vessels. And when you clean out those blood vessels and get that LDL, that bad cholesterol up out of there, this creates a smoother blood flow. And in turn, that's going to allow for the blood pressure to get under better control. So there's a number of domino effects that's happening as you start fasting. The cholesterol gets better, the blood sugar gets better, the blood pressure in turn is going to get better as well, and the body's going to start getting better. So this is one of the best health promoting practices that you can apply, and it's going to hit all these different processes. Number 5, cellular repair and detoxification. Intermittent fasting triggers processes like autophagy and autolysis, where the body cleanses and repairs cells. These mechanisms may contribute to overall cardiovascular health, including blood pressure management. So I want to go into this a little bit deeper because when it comes down to intermittent fasting, when it comes down to intermittent fasting triggering autophagy and autolysis, it's like a gray area right there. Okay, I'm gonna try to break it down as clearly as I can. So with this gray area is this, and I'm gonna go back to autophagy and autolysis real quick. When it comes down to autophagy and autolysis, it usually takes anywhere between 18 to 24 hours to kick in, and after that, any fast longer than that is going full blown. Now with intermittent fasting, in some individuals, how consistent you are with the process is going to display how well your body gets into autophagy, because you may only get a small window of autophagy during intermittent fasting, but as you compound it consistently doing the 16-8 to 16-8, and you're doing it day after day, week after week, and it's part of your lifestyle as a strategy, you're going to be able to get that healing benefit as you continue to move forward. And whereas if you're doing a different strategy like the 5-2 fasting strategy, you're not going to get into that level of autophagy or autolysis as deeply as all the other fasts, because you have to be in a fasting state for an extended period of time to reap the full benefits of autophagy and autolysis, which is the breaking down of the old damaged cells where they're getting recycled and rejuvenated to function at a higher level. So with intermittent fasting, that gray area is still there. That 16 hours is just enough to get a little bit in it, but as you're more consistent through the process, this is where you're going to really reap the benefits from it. And think of it like this. This is probably the best way I could give it to you. Think of it like this. A 3-day water fast. Okay, let me twist it around. A 30 days of intermittent fasting is the equivalent to 3 days of water only fasting. I'm gonna say that again. 30 days of intermittent fasting, a whole month of intermittent fasting, is the equivalent of doing a 3-day water only fast. So we talked about the water only fast yesterday, where you're going 3 days consuming water only during the fasting process, and you're just having nothing but water only during that fast, resting, water only, going through the motions. So that fasting process allows for you to be in autophagy for 48 plus hours, almost 72 hours, because you're having nothing but water only and you're not breaking the fast. Whereas the intermittent fasting, by the time 16 hours comes, you're breaking the fast, you're eating food, and you're going back into your normal cycle. So understanding that the water only fast is going to be the one that's most powerful when it comes down to the overall healing of the body, and the intermittent fasting is something that you want to build and compound on to strengthen the body. They ultimately will get you the same results, but again, the water only fast is going to happen a lot faster, and the intermittent fasting is going to be something that you gradually build on and apply as you're moving forward. Here we go. Next up. I gotta take the lock code off here. I don't know why it's not reading my finger. All right, here we go. Next up, potential hormonal effects. If intermittent fasting may influence hormones like norepinephrine, which can affect metabolic rate and blood pressure. The hormonal shifts during intermittent fasting may play a role in blood pressure regulation. So understanding that when you're fasting, this is a process. It triggers many different processes, and understanding what's going on during the fast is going to be very important to help you get through the process, because again, it can trigger different things such as maybe some detox symptoms and things like that. But understanding what's going on during the process is going to be very key, and this is going to help you maneuver through any different irregularities that you may feel, any symptoms that you may feel, maybe a headache, maybe you might feel maybe even if you start to feel a little ill, you'll be able to understand what's happening. And when I'm speaking of ill, I think I want to definitely slow down and touch on this as well. So if you're someone that's dealing with blood sugar issues, let's say you're diabetic, or you got your blood sugar issues, you're pre-diabetic, you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, I'll leave it at that. So if you're dealing with blood sugar issues, the best fast that you want to apply is going to be an intermittent fasting strategy. And that's going to be the hours that you fast are going to be regulated based off of your body and what you can handle. So an intermittent fasting strategy is going to be the best approach. Now, the 16-8 is on the high end of the scale. When I say high end, this is really testing your body, and you don't want to test your body with right out the gate with fasting. You want to see what you can do and then build yourself up to the next level. So the basic place that you want to start out with is a simple 12-hour fast. Stop eating at 8. Don't eat again till 8 in the morning. Simple as that. Anybody can do it. Just shut it down at 8 o'clock. Takes a little bit of discipline. Nothing else. Nothing else. You don't have to worry about taking any medication. Don't have to do anything else with it. Just simply stop eating at 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock. That's 12 hours of fasting. Start your routine there. If you're dealing with blood sugar issues, start there. Build from that point. And that's going to allow you to see how your body responds to fasting. When you wake up in the morning, you should feel absolutely normal. Break your fast, continue to move forward. Now, as you get through that process and you say, okay, 12 hours of fasting is cool. I got the discipline aspect down. I understand that my schedule looks like this. I stop eating at 8 and I break my fast 8 o'clock in the morning, or whenever I wake up in the morning. That's as long as it's past 12 hours, that's going to be the starting point of it. Next is going to be moving and progressing forward. Now, from that simple 12-hour fast, challenge yourself to do 14 hours. Now, 14 is going to be a little bit different because now you're going to be moving around. You're going to be getting your day started a little bit more. And you're foregoing the initial breakfast right out the gate. And you're still in the fasting stage 2 to 3 hours into your day. This is going to allow you to see how your body responds and allow for you to understand how your body's responding to the fast, because during this time frame, your body's going to be utilizing all the glucose inside of the system. And one thing that you don't want to do is allow your glucose levels to get low, because hypoglycemia is a real thing and you pass out and it could cause some serious complications. So understanding when you're in this fasting state, you should not feel ill. Your main thing is to see how your body responds, and make sure that you're analyzing, you're documenting your process to see how well you do moving up. So if 12 hours was great and 14 hours, it was a little struggle for you, you started to feel a little bad, or you started to feel, those effects coming on, this lets you know that your body needs to build itself up to get there, because that insulin sensitivity is going to continue to improve as you apply more to fasting. And as you continue with what you can handle, your body's going to gradually get better, because what's happening still, what's happening still is you're still balancing off your eating and your fasting window, and you're allowing for your body to break down its internal nutrient storages and utilize what it's having there. And this is going to continue to build and get better. You're still going to get the benefits from the weight loss. You're going to still get the benefits from the improved energy, for your body not being weighed down by the digestive system and all those different things. So as you continue to get better with the fast and get more consistent, you're going to get better. So that 12 hours eventually is going to grow to a 14 hours. That 14 hours eventually is going to grow to 16 hours, and that's going to show how your body's adjusting. Now, one thing that you can do as an umbrella, just if you're nervous about this fast and your blood sugar is getting low, or you're leaving the house and you're not going to have anything to eat with you, simply carry around some fruit juice. As simple as that. All natural fruit juice, whether it's a watermelon juice, apple juice, whatever juice. This is your umbrella. Now, I'm not saying this is something that you should consume all day, every day, going to juice fast. I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying carry some fruit juice with you as an umbrella, because what happens is, let's say you decide to leave the house and you haven't broken your fast yet and you're dealing with blood sugar issues. You don't want to be in a position where you haven't eaten anything and your blood sugars are crashing down. That fruit juice is going to be your fail-safe that's going to allow you to get some nutrients and some natural sugars into your body. That's going to bring those levels back up and allow for you to coast till you're able to go ahead and get something to eat and continue to move forward. So that fruit drink is going to be something that's good to have as an umbrella to help you break your fast and keep moving forward and continue to apply the strategy. But the main thing is understanding where you're at and how to progress forward. Start with 12 hours, go to 14 hours, go to 16 hours. Some people are going to do 12 hours without a breeze. Some people are going to go 14 without a problem, 16 as well. And they might be dealing with blood sugar issues also. But it's important to understand where you're at because everyone's different. So your blood sugar issues might not be as bad as this person's or that person. So you need to know where you're at, what you're comfortable with, and continue to go from there. So 12 hours is a great starting point. 14 hours as you progress the next week or so, and 16 hours continue to move forward. Because as you're able to do more, this is a sign internally that your body is getting better, is getting stronger, and you're getting more disciplined to handle the fast. And you're going to still continue to see the results. You're going to see your insulin sensitivity get better, the blood sugars get better, the blood pressure is going to get better, your weight is going to improve. All these things are going to become a domino effect that's going to continue to happen as your body gets into better alignment during the fast. So that intermittent fasting strategy is a great place to start for an individual that's dealing with those blood sugar issues, that's worried about hypoglycemia during the fast and things like that. Next up, intermittent fasting is a versatile and adaptable dietary approach with promising connections to high blood pressure management. Through mechanisms like weight loss, improved insulin sensitivity, inflammation reduction, cholesterol modulation, cellular repair, and potential hormonal effects, if intermittent fasting offers a multi-phase approach to cardiovascular health. Understanding and embracing intermittent fasting under guidance can be part of a comprehensive strategy to improve overall well-being and specifically target blood pressure issues. Next up. Double click. Hold on, y'all. Sorry about that. I think YouTube popped up on this tab. Oh, there we go. Boom. All right. Next up, alternate day fasting. Alternate day fasting is exactly what it sounds like. Alternate day. Alternate day fasting is a dietary pattern that alternates between fasting days and regular eating days. On fasting days, individuals either abstain from food entirely or consume a very reduced number of calories, typically around 25% of their usual intake. Now, that's the basic definition of alternate day fasting. If you pull that up off whatever site, they're going to give you that. Now, understanding alternate day fast, I'm going to give you the strategy and approach that I see to be most efficient for most individuals that's able to handle this type of fast. So again, alternate day fasting is basically alternating between the days that you're eating and the days that you're fasting. So you're creating a fasting window that's pretty much 24 hours or 36 hours long, and the eating window is going to be roughly the same. And during that alternating period, you're not eating anything for this whole complete day all the way to the next morning, 8 o'clock, which is going to be roughly 36 hours, give or take. So understanding that alternate day where you're not where you're fasting, it's going to be about a 36 hours fast. No eating, just water only during this time frame. And the reason I say water only is because I don't like to complicate the fast, because you're going to hear people that speak about fasting and say, yeah, you can consume herbal teas, or yeah, you can consume coffee, and you can consume all these things that won't break your fast. It's a real thin line where that's at. The easiest thing to do to ensure that you're going to get the most benefits from the fast, go water only. Simple as that. Don't complicate your fasting process or jeopardize it because you think this is going to be beneficial in some type of way, or you know it's going to be. Don't do it. Have the discipline, go water only as far as you can, and build up the discipline and build your body up to do what it needs to do. Because when you're reaching for these different items to stimulate you to just get through the process, you're only hindering yourself from getting to where it needs to be. Because again, as you build up some consistency through this process, your body's going to get stronger and get used to what you're doing and make the necessary adjustments. Those little stimulating effects that you're getting from the herbal teas or the coffees and things during the fast, that's only a crutch that's going to hinder you from ultimately getting to where you want to be. So don't crutch yourself, just go through the process and document your journey, and that's going to be more than enough to help you move through this process. So with the alternate day fasting, you're going to alternate days as you're moving forward. And again, this strategy is for someone that's able to handle this type of strategy. If you're an individual that's taking multiple medications and you have blood sugar issues and things like that, this is not the strategy for you. This is for that individual that body is able to handle this, that's dealing with those blood pressure issues that just may be a stubborn problem that's going on, and they're not taking all these medications to get it correct. This is something that's for that individual that body is still not so far on, that's in the middle of the spectrum. I'll give it that way. You're in the middle of the spectrum where you're not dealing with multiple chronic issues and all these other things, and your body is physically able to handle this amount of fast. And these individuals know their body and they know what they can actually handle. And they most likely have done some form of fasting before, and it's a fasting strategy that's really, really great for this person to apply. For myself, I'll tell you a little bit about my intermittent fasting journey, along with another individual that I coached through this process. My intermittent fasting journey was, it was actually pretty short-lived. It lasted about 17 days. I did 17 days intermittent fasting after I came off of my 6 months of water-only fasting. And that 6 months fasting strategy was it was 3 days each month for 6 months. I did a water-only fast. After I came off of that, I was happy with the results that I had. And then I decided to give the intermittent fasting strategy a try, just to switch up the things that I was doing. So I went on the intermittent fasting strategy. This was, I want to say, November, December, inside of that window. My wife at the time, we decided to go through this fasting strategy together. And for 17 days, we went through the intermittent fasting process. We did our 1 day, 36 hours of fasting. The next day we ate and we consumed food as a regular process. We had our cutoff window, which was like 8 o'clock as well. And then our fasting process started again for like another 36 hours. And we alternated days, eating, fasting for 17 days. During this process, now mind you, I was already deep into my health and wellness transition. I think at that time I was probably about, I want to say in my 190s. Mind you, my story goes from me being 248 pounds to coming down all the way to 168 pounds. At this time frame, I was in my like 190s, 194 in that space. And what happened was, during those alternating fasting for those 17 days, I lost 17 pounds. 17 pounds just by simply alternating the days that I was fasting. And it displayed itself in many different areas, from my neck, my shoulders, my waist, everywhere. It displayed that in that way. My wife as well. I think, I'm not exactly sure, but she was somewhere close to me, but I know I was definitely a lot higher than her. And we were happy with the fasting strategy. And we ultimately broke it because her body was talking to her in many different ways. Her cravings were crazy, and her body, and she was saying, yo, my body is demanding food. I need to break my fast. And as she was talking to me about it, I was like, okay, well, break your fast. And she broke it fast, and the next day we found out she was pregnant. So that was her body telling her like, hey, you need to put something inside of you and things like that. But we went 17 days. We had the intentions of going a lot further, but of course she found out she was pregnant, so we broke the fast at that point. But that fasting strategy was by far, it was very, very interesting and easy to maintain for myself as I was progressing through my journey, mainly because it allowed me to eat food, nourish my body, and give it the health promoting things that it needs. And the next day, my body was able to utilize everything that I gave it and some, break down the interior, the storage, the nutrient storages that it has, continue to break it down, utilize those storages up, and go through this whole fasting process that allowed me to get into autolysis, ketosis, autophagy, all those different things that continue to promote healing for that 17-day process. So over the course of that year alone, we did probably like 400 something hours of fasting. And again, I don't expect any of you guys to go that deep into it unless you're still moving forward. But we were testing all these different strategies to understand how the process was going and how it worked. And as we documented our journey to understand more and just to keep through it, intermittent fasting was one of the easier fasting strategies that brought some really quick results that was not only beneficial but sustainable, because my weight has never eclipsed back over there ever since. Like, and this goes to one of the most important things about fasting, is that you must have a health promoting diet, and the things that you're doing after fasting is going to be very, very important. Now, during our intermittent fasting strategy, we were fasting and we were still living in alignment with the health promoting lifestyle. We wasn't just eating anything that we wanted to eat. We were still consuming a health promoting diet. I was still following my dietary strategy of no salt, no oils, no sugars, consuming an abundance of whole food, plant-based foods, and that just kept me in alignment with this process. And that's the most important thing. You don't want to go through a fast and then go back to eating trash food. It's as simple as that. You don't want to do it because you're basically throwing your fast away and you're canceling out everything that you're doing. Think of it this way. After your body's going through autophagy and breaking down and getting rid of these old damaged cells, and it's looking for the nutrients to build up these new cells, and you're giving it crap, then it's like, man, I might as well left these crappy cells in here because I don't have the raw materials that I really need to make these strong, resilient cells. So it's important that you're still following suit with these health promoting lifestyles to ensure that you're giving your body the tools or the building blocks that it needs to structure a nice resilient body to correct those internal issues that you're faced with. So during the alternate day fast, you want to make sure that you're fasting appropriately. Just go on water only, keep it simple for yourself. And then when you are in your eating window, you're eating whole foods. You're eating the nutrients that your body needs. Specifically, when you're dealing with blood pressure issues, the potassium, the magnesium, the calcium, the zinc, vitamin C, the antioxidants. All those things are vital and important. And if you're giving your body these things during that critical phase of breaking down and rebuilding, you're going to see some major results from it. And during that time frame, I wish I had those pictures for you guys. I would have pulled them up for you. But during that time frame, we were both able to get some really, really strong results. And that brings me on to my next client that I had. And he came to me with blood pressure issues and blood sugar issues. He was like, hey, Kale, I went to my doctor. She told me I got high blood pressure and blood sugar problems. I've never dealt with anything like this in my life. You know, he mentioned about how his parents had, or I think one of his parents had, I don't know exactly who, but one of his parents had the issue. And, just last year, he was just fine and healthy. Now, all of a sudden, he's dealing with multiple issues. So we talked about his dietary strategy. And I mentioned like, hey, man, you're a good candidate for intermittent fasting. You're dealing with pre-diabetes and your blood pressure issue, this works in the same frame. How about give an intermittent fasting strategy a try? And I went through this whole process with him, and he was like, you know what? I think I can do that, because a lot of times, his lifestyle kind of aligned with what alternate day fasting was, And he was like, I'm gonna give it a try. And I can tell you, we documented his journey, and in 60 days, he lost almost, matter of fact, I want to get the numbers wrong. But in 60 days, he was able to get off the blood pressure medication. He was able to correct his pre-diabetes. And I want to say he lost almost 40 to 50 pounds during this process of alternate day fasting. Just simply going through the motions and just being consistent with it. He took all the pictures, he documented his journey, he did it for himself, and he got through this whole process, and he was amazed with the results that he's seeing. Not only was he amazed, but his wife, his co-workers, and everyone else that came across him saw his transformation. They was like, yo, what are you doing? Like, how are you getting these types of results? And he was explaining like, yo, I'm alternate day fasting. I'm eating one day and I'm simply fasting the next day. Well, how are you getting through with just not eating and, you're still working and still going through the motion? And the biggest thing is that during those eating days, he's consuming enough food and his body is basically carrying over and breaking those nutrients down and moving forward. But one of the biggest parts, again, is making sure you're eating enough of the health promoting foods, those building blocks, to actually allow your body to sustain and build itself up as you're moving forward. Because one thing about the alternate day fasting is that the detox symptoms are not as strong or as prevalent as the water only fasting. Like, you're gonna feel some differences in between based off of your dietary habits and how long and the other strategies that you're applying, but it's not as heavy of a detox as water only fasting, and it's a lot more sustainable for certain individuals. So this is a strategy that's really great for somebody that's in the middle of the road, that's ready to get control of these issues, that can handle this type of fast. And this would definitely allow them to open a pathway of more healing to move forward and doing bigger and better things as well. So alternate day fasting usually follows the pattern of 1 day of fasting followed by 1 day of regular eating, although variations exist. The fasting period allows the body to enter a state where specific metabolic and cellular processes are activated. That's autophagy, autolysis, and all those different things. Connection to high blood pressure. Again, it goes right back to weight loss and weight management. Alternate day fasting often leads to a reduction in overall caloric intake, promoting weight loss. And since obesity is a significant risk factor for high blood pressure, alternate day fasting weight loss effects can contribute to blood pressure reduction. Now, this is where the overall calorie intake is important at, because again, you could be in an alternate day fast, and if you're consuming things, let's say, for instance, I'm gonna give you another alternate day fasting strategy is where you're just greatly reducing the amount of food that you're consuming. That 25% caloric, you're only consuming 25% of your daily caloric intake. When you do that, you're not going to get into the autophagy and autolysis stages because your body has nutrients inside of it. The digestion is rolling, and your body has no need to go and break down its nutritional storages because it has stuff in the digestive system to deal with, even though it's only like 25%. This is going to give you a calorie deficit. Now, with the calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. It's as simple as that. But you're not going to get the type of cellular rejuvenation that comes from the autophagy and the autolysis. So the best approach, if you're looking to correct those type of issues on a cellular level, is to just go water only. And again, that might be tough for some people. That's why it's important to understand your fasting strategy. If you can't get to that alternate day fast, that 36 hours of water only, just dial back to the intermittent fasting and build yourself up to the process. One thing that I hate to see people do is to try a fast and come up short. And then they look at fasting like, it's too hard, I can't do it, and things like that. I don't want you to look at it that way. Look at it like, okay, I need to adjust my strategy, because when you say fasting is too hard and you can't do it, you're ruling out your body's natural way of healing itself, and you're more than likely not to even give it a try again. And when you put yourself in that position, you know, you're shutting down one of the best pathways for overall rejuvenation. So understand, if you don't make it through your fast, don't beat yourself up. Just take a step back and find another strategy that's more appropriate that you can get through. Again, the 12-hour fast is going to be one of the best places to start for that individual that's just not too sure of what to expect. And just that consistent level of and building it up is going to help you get to where you need to go. So, you know, it's different strategies for different people, and that's one of the most important reasons why we're doing this this challenge, so we can understand more about what we can do. Next, improve lipid profile. Some studies have shown that alternate day fasting may positively influence cholesterol levels, reducing the LDL cholesterol and increasing the HDL cholesterol. A healthy lipid profile supports blood pressure regulation, and that's the same thing we were talking about with intermittent fasting. The same type of process that allows for the blood cells to get cleaned, the blood vessels to get cleaned out and create a better, smoother blood flow. Enhanced insulin sensitivity, same exact thing. All these things flow in the same direction to allow the body to rejuvenate itself. The reduction in inflammation, the cellular repair process, the modulation of hormones, and the potential impact on the heart rate and the vascular function. All of those things are important when it comes down to rejuvenating the body as a whole. And alternate day fasting, intermittent fasting, those are all fasting strategies that are in alignment with this process. Alternate day fasting is a structured and clinical approach to fasting that offers potential benefits for high blood pressure management through mechanisms like weight control, lipid profile improvement, insulin sensitivity enhancement, inflammation reduction, cellular repair, hormonal modulation, and potentially impacts of heart rate and vascular functions. Alternate day fasting provides a multi-phase approach to cardiovascular health. I'm not going to read the rest of it because that's all the stuff I just said as well. So, you know, those are all fasting strategies that our next strategy we have is the water only fasting. And I'm going to read through this process as well. That way we can have those 3 strategies and be able to, my bad, these cartoons keep popping up on the tablet. It's like I'm sitting here watching cartoons right now. Here we go. Jesus Christ. Boom. All right. So we're going to go through the water only fasting. That way we can understand this 3rd level to that. So we went through the intermittent fasting. We got to the alternate day fasting. We talked about the different variations between those 2. Now we're going to go into the water only fasting. We briefly talked about it in day 1. We're going to go into it deeper in day 2 and tie all these things together. Here we go. Water only fasting is a type of fasting where an individual abstains from all food and caloric beverages, consuming only water. It's considered one of the most potent forms of fasting, often used for detoxification and healing purposes. Water only fasting is the most powerful form of fasting that you can use to correct any issues that you're dealing with within your body. Water only fasting is one of the safest and fastest ways to regulate your blood pressure. But again, not everybody is a great candidate to start out with water only fasting. And it's important that you that you understand where you're at when you're moving forward through this fast. And what's going to happen when we get further through this process, I'm going to break down how water only fasting is handled by doctors. That way you can understand how this process flows, what they look for, what they expect, and connect the dots between this process and just have a better understanding and see if there's something that you can actually do. During water-only fasting, the body relies solely on stored energy reserves, primarily fat, for fuel. This fasting method can be practiced for varying durations from 24 hours to several weeks, usually under professional supervision. Now, I'm gonna talk about my personal fasting strategy a little bit, and this is all my personal journey. Now, what I'm going to tell you guys, this is not necessarily for anyone to just try at home, because again, this requires practice of fasting and an understanding of what's going on internally while fasting. Now, my longest fast that I've been on, water only, was 29 days. I've done a 29-day water only fast, water only, nothing else, no tea, no coffee, no nothing. Just only thing came inside of me was water, and I went through this process for 29 days. I also did it with a buddy of mine that we went through this whole thing 29 days together. Now, that process, again, I don't recommend anyone to do this type of process because, again, typically when you're doing some type of fast like this requires some type of medical supervision. Now, and when it comes down to water only fasting, the same rules apply, the same things occur when you're doing intermittent fasting and alternate day fasting. The same thing occur: autophagy, ketosis, autolysis. All those things occur, but on a higher level and on a larger scale. Basically, you're going to be in autophagy at a higher rate for a longer period of time. So there's a ton of healing and cleansing and rejuvenation that's happening throughout the whole body. And one thing we spoke about yesterday was how the body identifies particular problems that it needs to handle first, basically like its order of operation. Your body handles the most important problem first, and then it gradually moves on to the next problem, the next problem. So understanding that your body is all knowing and it knows what needs to be taken care of. And during the water only fast, it allows for your body to have the time that it needs to rejuvenate itself. Now, during my 29-day water only fast, I spent those days resting. Nothing more, nothing less. It was times where I was able to watch a movie and do a little bit of journaling, and there was times where I didn't move at all. There were times where I was able to clean up and tidy up a little bit, but I never left my comfort zone. I never left, I never moved, and it was just a simple back and forth here and there. During the first 6 days, those were my toughest times. Reason being, my body was transforming and adjusting to what I was doing. Around day 3 or 4, I typically was my hungriest, and I was really going through like, okay, Now I'm starting to feel it. The first day or two was pretty simple, but 3 and 4 got really intense, and my hunger peaked at that time. But round 4, 5, and 6, hunger was completely gone. It was non-existent, and I can be functioning and doing different things. I wouldn't even think about food. The cravings were gone, hunger was gone, everything was out of my system, and I felt a whole lot better. During this time period, my body had completely switched its fuel source that it was using. My body was now in a full form of ketosis, simply using all my internal nutrient storage as food. Everything else that's typically floating throughout the bloodstream was gone, completely utilized, and now my body had its predominant source of food, which is going to be ketones, and that's a fuel that the brain uses a lot more efficiently than glucose. Now, during this transformation process, where I was still burning glucose and switching the ketones, it was very difficult because it was a lot of small symptoms here and there, and the cravings I was having was bouncing back and forth. And I was able to identify that, and I wrote it down. Me and my buddy, we talked about it. His symptoms were a lot worse than mine, but we talked about it through this process, and that would really help me as well, because we were going through this whole motion together. And now, as we got over this hump of hunger, it was really smooth sailing from there. Now my energy levels were back. I was able to do more. I was able to move around more. I even went outside and did other things, but I knew that I didn't want to get too far away from comfort, because I was finding myself going up and down in waves with energy. The biggest thing that I noticed was my sleep patterns were broken during my fast. And basically my body was up, like, hey, what are you sleeping for? Like, if it's no time to sleep, if you should be out there looking for some type of food or something, like getting us something to eat. Why are you sleeping? My sleep cycles were broken, and I want to say for about 75% of the fast, my sleep patterns were just wavy. I was resting inconsistently, and my body just didn't let me get into a full-blown state of sleep. The sleeping was completely off. But I didn't find myself being tired. I didn't find myself in any severe discomforts. My body was, I saw the changes going on within myself, but everything was in a position where it was more interesting than challenging. So as we continued through this fast, day 15, day 20, it was just a simple process. Continue to document our journey. We were taking our blood pressure. We're talking about going to the bathroom. Buddy of mine actually had a bowel movement like 14, 15 days without having any food. Really weird. We were talking about all these different things. And most importantly, as we were watching our bodies transform, we were understanding the impact and the healing that was actually occurring on a cellular level. And we went 29 days through this process. It was very enjoyable on a mental scale, just understanding what took place. Would I do it again? Probably not. Reason being, if I plan on not having a reason to do that type of fast. Basically, I don't want to subject my body to that type of fasting for any particular reason unless I need to. And that's one important thing. There is a such thing as doing too much fasting and things like that, which we'll get into that topic as we get there. But 29 days, that was the point where we decided to break the fast. Could I have gone longer? Yeah, I didn't lose a ton of weight. My body actually started to regulate itself throughout this process, and the weight loss really started to stop. I want to say about 7 or 10 days in, my weight loss really started to change. It wasn't just dropping like it was, because I want to say like the first couple days, I ended up losing between 4 or 5 pounds and things like that. But as I got deeper into the fast, it started to ease off and plateau, and I stopped losing as much weight as I was going through this process. So again, that was a 29-day fast that me and my buddy did, and it was an interesting process. Now back into water only fasting for this challenge itself, and the reason I went over this process because I wanted to get into fasting and how it's using in the medical industry right now. So one of the most popular places in the country that's doing water only fasting is the True North Health Center and it's out in California. And the doctor that does these fasts is his name is Dr. Alan Goldhammer. You can look him up on YouTube. You can look him up on I think mostly YouTube. He's pretty big on YouTube as well. You can look him up and watch his interviews where he's talking about water only fasting. He has people in his facility where he's fasting them for 40 days, 30 days, 20 days. And what he specializes in is treating people with fasting that are dealing with high blood pressure. Now, he did a study, I don't want to butcher the dates, but he did a study a few years ago where he took a couple hundred people, all dealing with stage 2 hypertension, blood pressure 145 and above, on multiple medications. He took these individuals and they did a water only fast for 10 days. He had him at his facility. They did water only fasting for 10 days, and something like 97% of those people were able to regulate their blood pressure, and most importantly, get off of the blood pressure medications by the power of the fast that they did. So this is a medically published study that's out there. Dr. Alan Goldhammer is the doctor that performed it, and he simply took them through the fasting process. Got the individuals there, and again, it was a couple hundred people. I want to say like 630 something people. Couple hundred people, all of them qualified for fasting based off of their blood pressure, their other metabolic issues that they were dealing with. They all fell in the right range for being a proper candidate for fasting, and he fasted them all for 10 days. And the majority of them were able to get off of the medication, correct their blood pressure issues, and move forward with a health promoting lifestyle, all by applying the water only fasting strategy to their lifestyle. Now, one thing I would definitely suggest is when you find that time, look up Alan Goldhammer. And I'm looking at my bookshelf, but I probably have to dive in a little bit deeper. But yeah, look up, oh, it's right there, look up Alan Goldhammer, and you could get some really good information about water only fasting. And it's a great entryway to understand more about the process, especially if you're intrigued and want to learn more. Dr. Alan Goldhammer is a great figure in water only fasting. This is his book right here, The Pleasure Trap. And this is a really good book about understanding not just fasting, but understanding the foods and things that causes us to make poor dietary decisions. Mastering the hidden forces that undermines health and happiness, The Pleasure Trap. It talks a lot about the salts, the oils, and the sugars, and those are some of the key factors that influence blood pressure. So this book, The Pleasure Trap, I'll make sure I put it in the link for you guys as well. That way you can pick it up and take a good read at it. Because if you're dealing with blood pressure issues and you want to understand how to get better control of your dietary habits, The Pleasure Trap is a great book to read and understand to help you get better knowledge about what you need to do to correct these types of problems. And it also goes into some water fasting and things like that. And it's a really good read and good insights. And plus, watching Dr. Alan Goldhammer interviews, he's a very funny guy. And he's not a boring doctor to watch at all. So here we go. During water only fasting, the body relies solely on stored energy reserves, primarily fat, for fuel. This fasting method can be practiced for varying durations from 24 hours to several weeks, usually under professional supervision. Water only fasting typically leads to significant weight loss as the body taps into fat stores for energy. Since excessive weight is a major risk for high blood pressure, this weight loss can contribute to lowering blood pressure. By abstaining from all food, water only fasting may enhance insulin sensitivity, allowing the body to use glucose more effectively. Improved insulin function can lead to a better blood sugar control, positively impacting blood pressure. Now, these are the same things that we spoke about for all the other variations of fasting, but this happens on a larger scale, again, because you're allowing your body to go into autophagy and activate all these different pathways of healing, and you're doing it for an extended period of time. It's like your body working overtime just to hammer and knock out these problems that you're dealing with while you're just resting, and this whole rejuvenation process is actually happening. So understanding that water only fasting is a pure form of fasting. It's the body's natural way of healing. And this is how you correct a lot of those underlying, this is how you correct those underlying chronic issues that are happening, specifically lifestyle diseases. When you understand these things, it's going to be very, very simple to get yourself in alignment. Now it's just really understanding the process. Now, next up, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. But now I'm going to talk a little bit about, the do's and don'ts of fasting. And the do's and don'ts of fasting, we're going to talk about the waters and all those different things, and the foods you can consume and the things that you shouldn't consume. And I'm going to lay it out for you in a way that you can make your own decision of how you want to move forward. I'm going to give you the best option, and I'm going to put that little gray stuff, that little gray area there, and hopefully on the other side, you figure out what's best for you, because I'm an individual. I like to give you the abundance of information that I understand and just let you pick and decide how you want to apply it. Reason being, I personally believe that we all live on a spectrum based off of a lot of different factors. And now each and every one of our spectrum is completely different. If you're focusing on being the healthiest version of yourself, you might be on this further end of this spectrum. If you're focusing on just trying to get off the medication, you might fall right there, so it all varies. I'm going to put these things on the table for you guys to make your own decision moving forward, and take the information, do what you need to do with it. Simple as that. All right, so when it comes down to fasting, now during fasting, applying an appropriate strategy that consists of that that involves the other areas of your lifestyle is going to be very important. Reason being, life doesn't stop, because you decide to fast. So understanding the other areas of your lifestyle is going to be important. Ideally, when you're doing a water only fast, you want to make sure that you're in alignment with all these other lifestyle strategies. So now, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to talk about fasting from a water only standpoint, because a lot of pieces of the puzzle starts to move when you start to talk about all these different ones. So I'm going to talk about it from a water only fasting standpoint, and I'm not going to drag it through to keep you out here. I'm going to go ahead and get to it. So when it comes down to water only fasting, ideally, the best type of water to consume is going to be distilled water. Now, you're going to hear tons of objections and tons of people throw in there the book at me saying, oh, why distilled water? Distilled water strips minerals. Distilled water is bad. All these X, Y, Z. No, spring water is the best. You're going to hear all of it. Simple as that. You're going to hear all of it. Now, I'm going to tell you why distilled water is the best method of fasting that I personally use, and every other doctor that I know that applies fasting use as well. When it comes down to water, when you're consuming while fasting, distilled water is a pure form of water. Nothing's in it. No vitamins, no minerals, nothing. It's a pure form of water. There's nothing in it. No nutrients, nothing. And the reason you want to consume distilled water, because it helps and it assists the fasting process. And why I say it assists, or rather should I say it doesn't interfere with the fasting process, is because it doesn't give your body anything. When you consume distilled water, it's pure water, no nutrients, no nothing, and it just allows for your body to hydrate and keep moving forward. Now, when you consume this type of water, basically, again, there's nothing inside of it, and it allows for your body to continue to break down its nutritional storages to utilize the nutrients that are there. Whereas if you consume spring water or alkaline water, all these other type of waters, they contain nutrients. They contain vitamins and they contain minerals and different things like that. And these minerals are typically inorganic compounds, because these minerals from spring water, they actually come from the rocks in the spring. And you don't necessarily eat rocks, so those minerals don't necessarily, they're not the same as the minerals inside of an apple or an orange and things like that. So those inorganic minerals, when they get inside of the body has to take those, break those down, and utilize them and do what they need to do with it. Whereas the distilled water comes in, the body, it doesn't have anything in it. So the body has to still continue to chip away at the fat storages and everything else, the nutrients that are all packed in different areas. The body has to still focus on that. So you're not giving the body anything, and the body focuses on breaking down those storages to continue to nourish itself, and it continues to allow the fasting process to continue at a high rate. Because if you're consuming water with nutrients, you're giving your body more nutrients on a certain scale, and now your body doesn't have to work as hard as it needs to because you're still giving it stuff in some type of way. Distilled water allows you to let your body to do what it does and continue to move forward without any type of crutch or hindrance. Now, with that being said, is it wrong to give your body spring water or whatever type of water? No, not at all. It's different fasting strategies for different people. Do your thing. If you feel like spring water is the best type of water for you, it's not going to hurt you. Not at all. Do so. You feel like alkaline water is the best? Do so. It's fine. Water is water. And, you know, they have different effects. I just see that through the studies and the information, distilled water is pure, it's natural, and it's nothing is coming in through this process. Think of it this way. Distilled water and the water inside of fruits and vegetables are identical in what they are, not in their structure, but in what they are. And what that means is the water that's inside of the fruits and vegetables and things like that, that is naturally distilled water. The water comes from the rain or the river or wherever. It goes through the ground, it comes up through the tree and gets height. Goes through the whole process of distillation, and it ends up inside of the fruit. That's a distillation process. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's how that process goes. And when you're distilling water, they basically come out to the same type of thing. But now it's just the actual fruit has the other vitamins and minerals and enzymes and nutrients and things inside that makes it a different type of structured water. So it's a little bit different, but they're basically identical when it comes to being a pure form of water, of how it's prepared or how it's actually finished. So, you know, it's different variations for water. That's my choice of water while I'm fasting. That's what I've seen and studied to see to be the most appropriate. And again, there's no right or wrong in the water that you decide to choose to consume. Just make sure it aligns with your health goals and what you're trying to do, and continue to move forward. Now, number 2, when it comes down to foods that you can consume that won't break your fast, there's a laundry list of things. But I'm going to give you the basics, and I'll give you the most popular, and it's up to you to decide exactly how it's going to go, and I'll tell you the ways to maneuver through it. Now, when it comes down to not breaking your fast, you want to ideally consume nothing that has any calories, any sugars, or, well, no calories, no sugar. That's the best way to go. Now, there's a ton of things on the market that doesn't have any calories or sugars, and ideally, technically, based off of the labels, they won't break your fast. But it can be complicated because labels are very deceiving. Just because something says it has 0 grams of sugar or 0 calories doesn't mean that it doesn't have sugar or calories. It just doesn't have enough to register as something that needs to be put on a label. So it gets real great, real tricky, real quick. That's why I say go water only. Now, herbal teas, black coffee, those are 2 of the most popular items that people decide to consume while they're fasting. Black coffee with no cream, no sugar, nothing else inside. That's something that won't break your fast. I'm not an advocate for coffee at all. Reason being because of what coffee does to the cardiovascular system. Now, coffee doesn't cause high blood pressure. Let me rephrase that a little bit. Coffee and caffeine in particular. That's why I want to say caffeine. Caffeine doesn't cause high blood pressure, but it's what's called the vasoconstrictor. Basically meaning that having coffee or having caffeine causes your blood vessels to constrict. And when your blood vessels constrict, those endothelial cells that line the blood vessel that produces the nitric oxide, that keep it nice and smooth and keeps the blood flowing properly, they get damaged. And when they get damaged, they're not able to do their job properly, and this creates the space for high blood pressure to progress. This causes a lot of the blood pressure issues. So whenever you're consuming coffee, this causes the blood vessels to constrict. This causes an increase in the heart rate, which increases the blood flow. The blood pressure gets elevated for the duration of the time that the caffeine is inside of your system. So if you're someone that consumes coffee consistently every day, maybe a couple cups per day, you're walking around with an elevated blood pressure for no particular reason, and eventually it just goes back down to whatever level is comfortable at. And then if you consume coffee again, it goes right back up. So if you're dealing with blood pressure issues, Coffee should not be in your mix whatsoever. Now, you're going to hear a lot of things about coffee that say, oh, coffee is this, coffee is good, coffee does this for the heart. Yes, coffee has some benefits here and there. I'm not going to argue that. But when it comes down to your endothelial cells, this is something that you don't want to, this is an area that you don't want to compromise at when it comes down to your blood pressure. And all the data that you see about coffee being good, the easiest way to cross-reference it is to follow the money. Who did the data? Who financed the study? And what was the back information behind it? That's going to give you all the information that you need to know about coffee, because when you look at coffee for what it is, it's the #2 most popular commodity that's traded in the world. Oil is #1 and coffee is #2. So if you think they're going to let you say something bad about coffee and have people stop drinking it, you got another thing coming. So do your own research. Deep dive into it. If you don't understand it and you see conflicting information, just follow the money. You follow the money, and then it'll pretty much tell you what you need to know. You'll see who financed the studies and who paid for the information, and you'll see what their real interests are when it comes down to these different topics. But coffee, black coffee, and herbal tea are 2 things that would not necessarily break your fast. The black coffee, again, I spoke my reasons about the caffeine, and it technically won't break your fast. Now, going to the herbal teas, this is a tricky area as well. Some herbal teas have dehydrated fruits inside of them. And these dehydrated fruits, they're like berries and stuff and stuff like that. Yeah, that's cool, but they contain levels of sugar. And that level of sugar that's in there, that fructose that's in there, it has the potential to break your fast. Even though you might not sweeten it or do anything in it, it has the potential to. Am I saying that it would? It may or may not, but why jeopardize the actual fast that you're doing because you're consuming these the tea, and instead of having the actual fasting experience, you're just having a calorie deficit. And a calorie deficit doesn't do the same thing as a fast. You might experience the benefits for the weight loss, maybe some improved digestion and other things like that, but you're not going to get to that healing benefit that comes from the actual fast itself. So understanding that instead of risking potentially breaking your fast, just go water only. It'll be the easiest way to move through. You don't have to give yourself no complications and struggle and think about if this is right or wrong, and just go for it. But again, it's a personal decision. You figure out which one works for you and you apply it as you see fit. Again, there's no wrong way to fast, in my opinion. There's some things that can compromise your fast, but do what's best for you and build your way up and document your journey. Because again, there's a lot of information that's out there, but take what you understand, build your own structure, and apply it to your lifestyle the way that you see fit, and continue to get better at it. It's as simple as that. Because one thing about information is this: when you start getting information from here, it all starts to sound like yeah, and then all of a sudden you just be like, you know what? I'm not even finna get into it. Most people take in too much information and they don't even use it because it's just too much. It's overwhelming, and they rather find something else to do. So those are a few things that you can consume that won't break your fast. But again, my logic is just keep it simple. Water only. Distilled water is ideally the best one, and you can continue to move forward from there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take any questions that you guys might have. And again, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That way you guys can get the notifications when I am going live again, talking about different subjects, fasting, challenges, nutrition, all those good things. That way you guys can be in tune with the community and pretty much help me deliver this information. Should you continue the intermittent fasting forever? That's a great question. There are people that just live and die by intermittent fasting, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In my personal opinion, I think people just eat too much food to begin with. There's nothing wrong with consistently intermittent fasting. Now, fasting for the wrong reasons or doing different types of fasts can fall into a form of like just abuse. You're just abusing your body for no particular reason. There's those individuals out there that's always fasting, doing extended fasts all the time. We got to remember that fasting is a healing and cleansing mechanism. I'm talking more so the water only fast and things like that. It's a healing process that the body uses for particular reasons, and you can abuse it. You can abuse certain fasts by doing too much of it. But understanding that adopting an intermittent fasting strategy is going to be one of the best things that you can do for your overall health and lifespan. And I'm sorry that I always like look off at certain times, because every time I look off like this, I got a good treat for you guys. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab it right now. My bad. So I got this. I read this book a few years ago by Dr. David Sinclair. So here we go. It's called Lifespan: Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. And in his book Lifespan, Dr. Sinclair, he talks about fasting and the role that it plays in activating the healing mechanisms within our body and those rejuvenating genes. And long story short, basically, I caught a call real quick. So I'm not sure if I got knocked off line, but if you guys can still hear me and see me, put a 1 inside of the chat. That way I can continue to move forward. A call came through. I thought I put my phone on airplane mode. But if you guys can still hear me and see me, put a 1 in the chat, and then I can make sure I keep going. But Lifespan by David Sinclair, he goes into fasting and talks about how it's one of the most beneficial things you can do for your overall health. He talks about the healing that it does when it comes down to aging, cellular rejuvenation, everything for the body as a whole. So sorry, I forgot whose name it was. I'm sorry. Miss Ann Joseph. Adopting the fasting strategy throughout the rest of your life is definitely something that's very beneficial. And to get some deeper, greater insights about it, I would definitely recommend Lifespan by Dr. Sinclair as a good read. Now, as a warning, this is a boring book. Nothing against Mr. Sinclair. I was diving deep into fasting, doing my earlier learning methods of just understanding fasting as a whole. This wasn't a fun read, but I got through it and it gave a lot of information. So for me, being a geek learning about fasting, this was pretty cool. For you just trying to get some good insights, I let you decide. I just gave you the warning about it though. But it has a ton of knowledge about fasting, your lifespan, your overall longevity. And for the specific individual, this can be a great tool to help you understand almost how to reverse your aging through the fasting aspect. So if you're someone that's dealing with wrinkles and you're trying to look nice and young and healthy, Lifespan, it'll get you right to where you need to be. This is a good book for that type of understanding. Not the most pleasurable of reads. He doesn't use a lot of medical terms and things like that, but he has a lot of great information, and he does have a podcast. I don't remember what it is though, but it's a pretty good, pretty good book when it comes down to fasting. Should someone who is diabetic do water fasting or fasting at all? And back in the beginning of the video, Miss Malone, we were talking about the intermittent fasting being the best strategy moving forward. Starting out with a 12-hour fast, seeing how your body handles it, and then progressing to more time afterwards as your body builds up. So if you're dealing with blood sugar issues, intermittent fasting is going to be the best place to go. Do I have some more fasting tools up there about intermittent? I do. But I don't want to just keep running off my camera to grab books. I probably should have had them sitting here. But yes, if you're dealing with diabetes and blood sugar issues, intermittent fasting is going to be the best place to go. And we got more details inside of the ebook where you will see those fasting strategies in the back of the book that helps you understand how to apply fasting in a 7-day format. Here we go. I stopped at 5 p.m. I broke my fast at 11 a.m. with the banana and water. At 12 p.m., whole foods lunch, vegetables and protein. 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., snack, fruits and water. So technically I fast for 7/17. I'm not sure, Miss Sylvia Porch, if I understood that completely. I saw a lot of different numbers. I'm gonna try to decipher your question a little bit. So I'm gonna read it again. I stopped at 5 p.m. So you stopped eating at 5 p.m. and you broke your fast at 11 a.m. Oh, got it. Cool. Makes sense. So yeah, you're in the right. That's the right strategy where you're at with that fast, and that's a great window that you created for yourself. Now, what happens is, as you get better, you do better. You just do more because, again, you're only building your body up and correcting those internal issues. A great fast, for one of the best fasts that a person can apply for themselves, is a 1 meal a day type of fasting strategy. This is one of the fasting strategies that Mr. Sinclair talked about inside of his book. And I believe himself and a few other fasting doctors talk about the same thing as well. And one of the most important things is that, the results that they're getting from this process, because again, it goes back to the body as a whole and the cellular rejuvenation that they're speaking of. And this just clicks on so many levels, especially if you're an individual that's dealing with chronic issues, that's trying to heal the body, and you're looking for that overall cellular rejuvenation. So the better you get at fasting, the better things start to turn around, because again, fasting affects the body as a whole. Next up, do you eat right through your fast until time to end? And what does someone eat during the fasting window? I think I went over that, Miss Malone. I don't think I'm gonna go back into that one. Please say some things of the things you eat during the eating window. Please say some of the things you eat in the window. So I'm gonna take that as the eating window. So in the eating window, when you're not fasting, when you broke your fast and you're consuming foods. Now, when you break that fast, ideally fresh fruits is gonna be the best thing, because you're getting your digestive system going. Fresh fruits is easy on the digestion, and they don't take long for the body to break down and utilize. So fresh fruits are always going to be the best thing. Now, when you're in between that fast and you're in that fasting window, I'm gonna start with the intermittent fasting type of window. You want to break your fast with fresh fruits if possible. That's going to be one of the best things to do. And what happens is you just want to eat more of those health promoting foods. Now, if you're dealing with those challenges of blood pressure, which this challenge is all about, you're dealing with those blood pressure issues, your dietary habits should focus around eating those foods that are high in the minerals that are essential for blood pressure regulation. Those minerals are potassium, magnesium, calcium, zinc, and sodium falls in there as well. Those are like the big five that regulate blood pressure. And we're going to go into those a little bit. That way you can understand them. So potassium and sodium have a direct pathway that they work together. They work in opposition, and potassium balances out sodium to regulate the blood pressure. The sodium levels are too high, blood pressure goes up. Potassium's job is to be a natural diuretic, keep that sodium level down and regulate it. It keeps the blood pressure in check. So consuming enough foods that are high in potassium is going to be very important. In our 7-day fruit and salad challenge, we talked about the different foods and the different minerals, the different foods that contain the different minerals that are essential for blood pressure. And when it comes to potassium, Swiss chard, sweet potatoes, kale, spinach. It's a ton of different foods. And the best way to identify these foods is just by the best way to get these foods is by simply eating whole foods. Whole foods, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, they all typically have an abundance of all these different nutrients, and it's going to allow for your body to build itself up and keep going. So I'm not going to sit here and identify all the different individual foods, but if you look at whole foods and how they're structured, they're going to have everything that you need. And the reason I say whole foods is because when you eat those foods as a whole item, it's going to allow you to get the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber, the water, and all those other different things that are going to help your body in a different way. So whole foods that are high in potassium, magnesium, calcium, and zinc, and the sodium factor is going to be inside of them as well. But altogether, your body's going to be able to process it and regulate it the proper way. If I start doing alternate day fasting, if I start doing alternate days, I just start the next day breaking the fast at the same time I started the fast. Okay, I think I understood that one. I got a hard time reading, man. I don't know why. I got great eyes, but I just can't see with my table and the words. So think of it this way. So ideally, when you're in that fast, you're alternate day fasting. So you start 8 a.m. Let me restructure that. Alternate day fasting. So if I were to start alternate day fasting for tomorrow, I would start fasting at 8 p.m. tonight. 8 p.m. at nighttime, stop eating. And what happens is from 8 p.m. that night all the way to the next day and the next morning, that's going to be your complete fasting cycle. that's going to put you with all that. That's going to put you on the right time schedule for fasting. Reason being, you're stopping at 8. You're going to complete that whole 24 hours, which is 8 o'clock p.m. again. And at nighttime, you don't want to be eating anything at all. And it's going to carry over to the next morning. And that's going to be roughly 36 hours, give or take. And that's going to be your complete alternate day cycle. That whole 36-hour, give or take, time frame, fasting only, water only, and that's how that's going to look. Now, from 8 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m., that's where you have that time frame to eat whatever you want. That's the 24-hour period. Eat whatever you want, because again, you want to stop eating at 8 p.m. again, and that time frame, that 12 hours across, you're in the fast. You're entering into that the next alternate day fasting state. So you're going in between that time frame of alternating between the fast, and that's going to help you get to where you need to be, far as alternate day fasting, alternating fasting one day and eating the next day. It's going to allow you to just continue to rotate and move through that process. So hopefully I corrected that. I said that clearly for you guys to understand. I think I did. Sometimes I think I be butchering stuff up though sometimes. So I'm glad you guys got that. So now we're done for today's section. I actually went 30 minutes longer than I typically try to, but I think it was some pretty good information. If you guys think I gave some good information, put a 2 inside the chat. That way I know that I'm delivering some good information to you guys to help you on your journey. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video with your family and friends. Anyone that's interested in learning about fasting, share the video. That way they can continue to learn the different tactics and strategies that they could use to help them improve their overall health. Tomorrow, we're not having class tomorrow, actually, because tomorrow I'm in the kitchen. I'll be preparing a different item from my cookbook, and we'll be going over understanding some more of the nutritional information to help you guys build a solid foundation when it comes down to making the dietary changes. So we'll be in the kitchen tomorrow. We'll be live on YouTube again at 7:30, not 8:30, because I don't want to be cooking too late. We'll be live at 7:30. That way we can understand more about the dietary changes, and we'll pick back up with the fasting strategies on Thursday. So with that being said, I do appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow as well, live on the YouTube channel. And again, like the video, share this video, subscribe to the page, and I'll be definitely delivering more information to each and every one of you guys. Peace and blessings. Take care, and I'll see you next time.